The chains were heavy on Marcus Cole's wrists. They had been dragging him through the streets for 3 hours now. The alien crowds watched from both sides. Some laughed. Some threw rotten fruit. Most just stared with their cold orange eyes. Marcus was the only human on this planet. He had crash-landed here 6 months ago. His ship had failed. His crew had died. He alone had survived, and the Varthakeen people had found him wandering in their desert. They called him the hairless beast. They called him the weak one. They called him useless meat. The Varthakeen were tall creatures. They stood 8 feet high with scales covering their bodies. Their eyes glowed orange in the dark. They had 4 arms and walked on 2 powerful legs. They had built a great empire across 7 star systems. They believed themselves to be the superior race in all the galaxy, and they kept dragons, not the dragons from Earth stories. These were real creatures, living weapons. The Varthakeen had found them on a distant world and had tried for 1,000 years to tame them. They had failed. The dragons were too intelligent, too proud, too dangerous. So instead of taming them, the Varthakeen fed them. Every month, they would gather their criminals, their failures, and their unwanted. They would chain them together and march them to the dragon peaks. There, they would leave them as offerings. The dragons would come down from their caves. They would feast. And for another month, they would not attack Varthakeen cities. Marcus Cole was now part of this offering. The High Priest Zorvath walked at the front of the procession. His golden robes sparkled in the twin suns. He held a staff topped with a dragon skull. He was the one who had ordered Marcus to be included in this month's feeding. "The human is weak," Zorvath had declared to his council. "He cannot work in our mines. He cannot fight in our arenas. He cannot even survive our summer heat without special cooling suits. What use is such a creature? Let the dragons have him. At least his death will serve some purpose." The council had agreed. They always agreed with Zorvath. Now Marcus walked among 20 other prisoners. Most were Varthakeen criminals, murderers, thieves, those who had spoken against the Empire. There was also a young female Varthakeen named Sira. She was not a criminal. She had simply asked too many questions about why the dragons could not be reasoned with instead of fed. Sira walked beside Marcus. Her scales were a lighter shade of green than the others. Her eyes were more yellow than orange. She was considered ugly by her people's standards. Another reason she had been chosen. "Human," she whispered. "Are you afraid?" Marcus looked at her. His brown eyes met her yellow ones. He was dirty. His clothes were torn. He had a beard now, thick and dark. He had lost weight since landing on this world, but something in his eyes remained unbroken. "Yes," he said honestly, "but fear and surrender are not the same thing." Sira tilted her head. She did not understand. The procession continued through the city gates. The land beyond was harsh. Red rocks stretched toward distant mountains. Those mountains were black, volcanic, and constantly smoking. The dragon peaks. Even from this distance, Marcus could see shapes moving in the clouds above them. Large shapes, flying shapes. Guards on hovering vehicles surrounded the prisoners. They carried energy weapons and electric prods. Any prisoner who tried to run was shot. Marcus had already seen 2 bodies left behind on the road. As they walked, Marcus studied the landscape. He studied the guards. He counted their weapons. He noted their patrol patterns. This was what he did. Before the crash, before everything fell apart, Marcus Cole had been a survival specialist. His job had been to train soldiers to survive in any environment, any situation, any odds. He had survived jungle warfare on 3 different planets. He had lived through a crash in the acid seas of Proxima 4. He had escaped from enemy prisons twice. His commanding officers had called him the Cockroach because he simply refused to die. Now, he was walking toward dragons. The journey took 2 days. They slept on the ground with no blankets. They were given small amounts of water and hard bread. 3 more prisoners died from the heat. Their bodies were left where they fell. On the second night, Sira sat beside Marcus. "You are different from what I expected," she said quietly. "Our stories say humans are stupid animals, that you have no technology, that you eat your own young." Marcus laughed. It was a dry, tired sound. "Your stories are wrong. Humans built ships that cross galaxies. We created artificial minds that can think faster than any living brain. We cured diseases that killed millions. We are not animals." "Then why are you here? Why did your ship fail?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Bad luck. A solar flare damaged our navigation systems. We drifted off course. The ship entered your planet's atmosphere too fast. Everyone died except me." "And you survived because you are lucky?" "I survived because I refuse not to." Sira studied him with those strange yellow eyes. "The dragons will not care about your refusal. They have eaten thousands of offerings, warriors stronger than you, creatures faster than you. The dragons cannot be defeated." Marcus looked toward the dragon peaks. Even in the darkness, he could see fire glowing in the caves high above. He could hear distant roars echoing across the valley. "Tell me about the dragons," he said. "Everything you know." Sira seemed surprised by the question. Most prisoners simply cried or prayed in their final hours. None had ever asked for information. "They are ancient," she began. "Older than our empire. Some say older than our species. They are intelligent. They can speak, though they rarely do. They have a society of their own in those mountains, a hierarchy. There is a queen who rules them all. She has ruled for over 5,000 years. They live that long? Longer. The queen is not the oldest. She is simply the strongest. Dragons respect only strength, only power, only those who prove themselves worthy." Marcus nodded slowly. His mind was working, always working. "Has anyone ever tried to communicate with them, to negotiate?" Sira laughed bitterly. "Many times. Our ancestors sent diplomats, scholars, priests. They all died. The dragons do not want peace. They want to be left alone. The offerings are the only thing that keeps them from burning our cities to ash." "So they accept the offerings because it is easier than fighting?" "I suppose. I never thought of it that way." Marcus said nothing more that night, but he did not sleep. He sat staring at those distant flames, and something was forming in his mind. A plan. Perhaps a foolish plan. Perhaps an impossible plan, but a plan nonetheless. The third morning came. The prisoners were unchained from each other and herded into a large metal cage on wheels. The cage was pulled by hovering engines toward the base of the dragon peaks. There, a great stone platform had been built. It was stained dark with old blood. High Priest Zorvath appeared on a floating platform high above. He was safe, protected by energy shields. He carried no weapons because he needed none. He was merely there to observe, to bless the offering, to perform the ancient rituals. "Today," Zorvath announced, his voice booming through speakers, "we give thanks to the Great Ones. We offer these unworthy souls so that our cities may remain safe, so that our children may sleep without fear. Let the feast begin." The cage doors opened. Guards with electric prods forced the prisoners onto the stone platform. Some prisoners screamed. Some ran, only to be shot by guards on the perimeter. Most simply stood frozen in terror. Marcus walked calmly to the center of the platform. His heart was beating fast, but his face showed nothing. He had learned long ago to hide his fear. Fear was a tool. It could save you or kill you, depending on how you used it. Sira stood beside him. She was trembling. "Human. Marcus, I am scared." "Good," Marcus said. "Fear will keep you alive. When I move, you run. Not away from the platform, toward the rocks on the left. There is a small cave there. Hide and do not come out until I come for you." "What are you going to do?" "Something stupid." Before Sira could ask more, the sky darkened. Something massive was descending from the peaks. Then another, then three more. The dragons were coming. They were enormous. The smallest was the size of a bus. The largest was the size of a building. Their scales shimmered with colors that seemed impossible. Blues that glowed, reds that burned, greens that shifted like liquid. Their eyes were like stars, bright and ancient and terribly intelligent. The prisoners screamed. Some fainted. Others tried to run. The guards had already retreated to safe distance. This was always the part they hated to watch. The largest dragon landed first. The ground shook. Dust rose in clouds. The creature's head was the size of a car. Its teeth were longer than swords. Steam rose from its nostrils with every breath. It looked at the prisoners the way a human might look at a plate of food, not with hunger, with something closer to boredom. "The same as always," the dragon spoke. Its voice was deep and old and seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Weak, trembling, pathetic. This is what the Varthakines send us. This is how little they value our patience." The other dragons rumbled in agreement. They began to approach the platform from different angles. The feast was about to begin. Marcus stepped forward. Everyone froze. The prisoners, the guards, even the dragons. No offering had ever stepped forward before. They always ran. They always hid. They always begged. This small, hairless creature was walking toward the largest dragon with his head held high. "What is this?" the great dragon asked, genuine curiosity in its voice. "My name is Marcus Cole," Marcus said clearly. "I am human. I am not a Varthakine. I was not born under their rule. I do not accept their justice, and I do not accept being fed to anyone without a proper introduction first." Silence. Complete and total silence. Then the dragon laughed. It was a terrifying sound, like thunder mixed with earthquakes. The other dragons joined in. The prisoners covered their ears. "A proper introduction?" the dragon said. "Little creature, I am Vorthax the Burning. I have lived for 4,000 years. I have eaten 10,000 offerings. What could you possibly have to say to me?" Marcus did not flinch. "I have a question. One question. Then you can eat me if you wish." Vorthax lowered his massive head until it was level with Marcus. One of his eyes was larger than Marcus's entire body. Heat radiated from his scales. Marcus could feel his skin starting to burn. "Ask," Vorthax commanded. "Amuse me before you die." Marcus took a breath. This was it. This was everything. "In 4,000 years," he said, "has anyone ever offered to serve you, not die for you, serve you, by choice, as an equal, as a partner?" Vorthax went still. The other dragons went still. Something had changed in the air. Something ancient had been stirred. "No," Vorthax admitted slowly. "In 4,000 years, no one has ever offered that." "Then I offer it now," Marcus said. "I offer my service, my knowledge, my skills. Not because I am afraid, because I believe we could help each other. I believe I could be useful to you in ways that screaming prisoners could never be." Vorthax studied this strange creature, this tiny, weak, hairless thing that stood before him without trembling, without begging, speaking words that no one had spoken in 4 millennia. "And what," Vorthax asked, "could a creature like you possibly offer a dragon?" Marcus smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a man who had escaped death 100 times, a man who had nothing left to lose. "I offer you the one thing you have never had," Marcus said. "I offer you a human's cunning, a human's persistence, a human's absolutely insane refusal to accept the impossible." He paused, letting the words sink in. "The Varthakine think you are mindless beasts to be fed," I know you are intelligent beings who deserve respect. Let me prove what a human can do. Give me 1 month. If I fail, you can eat me slowly. If I succeed, you gain something far more valuable than another meal." Vorthax was silent for a long, terrible moment. The other dragons watched. The prisoners held their breath. High above, Zorvath leaned forward on his platform, confused by what he was seeing. Then Vorthax pulled back his head. He looked at the other dragons. Something passed between them. Some ancient communication that needed no words. When Vorthax looked at Marcus again, there was something new in those enormous eyes, something that might have been respect. "Come with me, little human," Vorthax said. "Let us see what you are made of." And to the shock of everyone watching, Marcus Cole walked unharmed into the shadows of the Dragon Peaks, side by side with the most terrifying creature on the planet. Behind him, Sira watched from her hiding spot. She did not understand what she had just witnessed, but she knew somehow that everything was about to change. Above, High Priest Zorvath was already calling for emergency meetings. A prisoner had just walked away from the offering. A human had just spoken to dragons. This was impossible. This was unprecedented. This was dangerous. And it was only the beginning. The caves were deeper than Marcus had imagined. They stretched for miles into the heart of the volcanic mountains. The walls glowed with natural crystals that pulsed with soft light. The air was hot, but not unbearable. The dragons had somehow created vents that allowed cool air to flow through their tunnels. Marcus walked beside Vorthax. The dragon moved slowly so the human could keep pace. Other dragons watched from side tunnels as they passed. Young ones the size of horses, old ones larger than Vorthax himself. Their eyes followed Marcus with a mixture of curiosity and hunger. "They want to eat you," Vorthax said casually. "I know," Marcus replied. "Can you blame them? I probably look delicious." Vorthax made a sound that might have been amusement. "You are strange, human. Most creatures shake with terror in our presence. You make jokes. Fear and humor come from the same place. I learned that a long time ago." They continued deeper into the mountain. The tunnels opened into massive chambers. Marcus saw dragons sleeping in piles like enormous cats. He saw young dragons playing with what looked like bones. He saw elders discussing something in low, rumbling tones. This was not a nest of mindless beasts. This was a civilization. "You have cities," Marcus said softly. "You have society, culture. The Varthakeen have no idea." "The Varthakeen see what they wish to see," Vorthax replied. "They call us monsters because it makes them feel justified in their cruelty. It is easier to feed prisoners to monsters than to admit they are murdering their own people." Marcus thought about this. He had seen similar things on Earth. Humans had done the same throughout history, called their enemies animals, monsters, subhuman. It made killing easier. It seemed this behavior existed across all species in the galaxy. They finally arrived at the deepest chamber. It was enormous. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above. The walls were covered in carvings, ancient symbols that told stories Marcus could not read. And at the center of this chamber sat the most magnificent creature Marcus had ever seen, the Dragon Queen. She was not the largest dragon. Vorthax was bigger. Several others in the chamber were bigger. But she radiated power in a way that had nothing to do with size. Her scales were pure white, almost glowing. Her eyes were gold, and they held wisdom beyond anything Marcus could imagine. "Vorthax," the queen spoke, and her voice was like music mixed with thunder. "You bring a creature to our sacred hall. This has not happened in 3,000 years. Explain." Vorthax bowed his great head. "Majesty, this human interrupted the feeding. He spoke words that have not been spoken since the old times. He offered service, partnership. I believed you should hear him yourself." The queen turned her golden eyes to Marcus. He felt her gaze pierce through him. He felt naked before her, all his secrets exposed, all his fears revealed. Yet he did not look away. "Human," the queen said, "I am Thessalia. I have ruled these peaks since before the Varthakine built their first city. I have watched empires rise and fall like waves upon a shore. I have eaten kings and warriors and would-be heroes. Tell me, little creature, why should I not add you to that list?" Marcus swallowed. His mouth was dry, but he kept his voice steady. "Because eating me would be a waste, Majesty. I am more useful alive than dead. I have knowledge that could benefit your people. Skills that no dragon possesses. And more importantly, I see what others do not see." "And what do you see?" "I see that you are trapped. Powerful beyond measure, but trapped nonetheless. The Varthakine send you food because they fear your anger. But this arrangement suits them more than it suits you. They use your existence to control their own population. Criminals go to the dragons. Rebels go to the dragons. Anyone who questions authority goes to the dragons. You have become their weapon of fear without even realizing it." The chamber went silent. Dragons shifted uncomfortably. This human was speaking truths that had not been spoken aloud for centuries. Queen Thessalia leaned forward. "Continue." "Your people are confined to these mountains," Marcus said. "The Varthakine have built weapon stations around the perimeter. I saw them on my march here. They claim these are for protection, but they are really for containment. They cannot kill you all, but they can make your lives smaller, keep you locked in your peaks. And every year, they send fewer offerings. They are slowly starving you into weakness." Vorthax growled. "The human speaks truth, Majesty. 50 years ago, we received 100 offerings each month. Now we receive 20, sometimes 15. "And in another 100 years?" Marcus asked. 10? 5? Eventually they will send none, and by then your numbers will have dwindled. Your strength will have faded. They are playing a long game, Majesty, a game that will end with your extinction." Queen Thessalia was silent for a long moment. Her golden eyes never left Marcus. "You are clever, human," she finally said. "Clever enough to see what many of my own advisors have missed. But cleverness alone does not earn trust. What do you propose?" Marcus took a breath. Here was the dangerous part. Here was where everything could fall apart. "I propose a partnership. I will teach you what I know about the Varthakine, their weaknesses, their technologies, their political divisions. In return, I ask only to be treated as an equal, not a pet, not a prisoner, not a meal, a partner." "And what would you teach us, little creature? We breathe fire, we fly through storms, we have claws that can tear through metal. What could a soft, fragile human possibly offer?" Marcus smiled. "I can teach you how to think like humans think, and human thinking is the most dangerous force in the universe." He pointed to a nearby crystal formation. "May I demonstrate?" The queen nodded slowly. Marcus walked to the formation. He studied it for a moment. Then he began to speak. "You dragons are strong, perhaps the strongest creatures in existence, but you have lived in isolation for so long that you have forgotten how to adapt. The Varthakine are weak individually, but they work together. They build machines to do what their bodies cannot. They create weapons that amplify their power 1,000 times. He picked up a loose shard of crystal. It was sharp at one end. "This crystal is beautiful but useless, you might think. Just a rock, but a human sees something different." He found a straight piece of bone nearby. He used a strip torn from his own clothing to tie the crystal to the bone. In minutes, he had created a crude spear. "Now this useless rock can kill from a distance. One human with one spear might seem weak, but imagine 1,000 humans with 1,000 spears. Imagine 10,000. This is how humans conquered their planet, not through strength alone, but through tools, through cooperation, through endless, stubborn creativity." The dragons watched with growing interest. Several of the younger ones had moved closer. "Your claws can tear through Varthakine armor," Marcus continued. "Your fire can melt their weapons, but their energy shields can block fire. Their machines can fly higher than you can reach. They have adapted to your strengths. They have planned for your abilities. They have not planned for human thinking." Queen Thessalia tilted her magnificent head. "You intrigue me, human, but words are wind. Prove yourself. Show me what human thinking can accomplish." "Give me a task," Marcus said. "Anything. The more impossible, the better." The queen considered. Then she pointed a claw toward a distant tunnel. "Our water source. A great underground river that has sustained us for millennia. 3 weeks ago, it stopped flowing. Something has blocked it deep in the mountain. We have sent our strongest dragons to investigate. They cannot reach the blockage. The tunnels are too narrow. Without water, we will have to leave these peaks. We will have to fight the Varthakine. Many will die." Marcus felt his heart race. This was perfect. This was exactly the kind of problem that required human thinking. "Show me the tunnels," he said. "Let me see what your strongest dragons could not reach." 2 days later, Marcus stood at the entrance to a narrow passage. The main tunnels had led to this point, but beyond it, the rock squeezed together. A dragon could never fit through. Even the smallest adults were too large. But Marcus was not a dragon. He carried a bag made from dragon leather. Inside were crystals for light, rope made from dragon sinew, and tools he had created over the past 2 days. The dragons had watched him work with fascination. They had never seen anyone make such things before. "If you die down there," Vorthax said, "I will be disappointed." "Try not to eat anyone in grief," Marcus replied. Vorthax snorted smoke. "Go, human. Find our water." Marcus squeezed into the passage. The rock pressed against him from all sides. He had to exhale completely just to fit through the tightest spots. His crystal light cast strange shadows on the walls. Water had once flowed here. He could see the marks it had left over centuries. For 3 hours, he crawled through darkness. Sometimes the passage opened slightly. Sometimes it closed so tight that he had to remove his bag and push it ahead of him. His body was scratched and bleeding. His muscles screamed with exhaustion, but he kept going. This was what humans did. They kept going. Finally, he heard it, the sound of rushing water ahead. But the sound was wrong. The water was not flowing past this point. It was stopped. Damned. Marcus squeezed through one final gap and emerged into a small cavern. His crystal light revealed the problem immediately. A massive rockfall. Boulders piled on top of boulders, blocking the river completely. Water gathered behind this dam, rising slowly. Eventually, it would find another way out. But by then, the dragons would have been forced from their home. Marcus studied the rocks. They were too large to move by hand, too heavy for any tool he could make. This seemed impossible, but he was human. Impossible was just a word. He remembered his training. Water pressure could be used as a weapon. The gathered water behind this dam was building energy, building force. All he needed was to redirect that force. He searched the cavern for the right spot. There, a crack in the rock wall beside the blockage. If he could widen that crack, the water pressure would do the rest. The dam would collapse from the side, not from trying to push through it. He spent 6 hours working. Using his crude tools, he chipped at the crack. He jammed smaller rocks into gaps to create leverage points. He used every trick he had ever learned about physics, about pressure, about the weakness of stone. Finally, he felt the rock shift, heard the first trickling of water through his widened crack. He ran. Behind him, the mountain groaned. Water found the weakness and exploited it. Pressure that had been building for weeks was suddenly released. With a tremendous roar, the dam collapsed sideways. Water exploded through the cavern, blasting the blockage apart. Marcus was already climbing. The flood chased him through the narrow tunnels. He pulled himself up just as water rushed past below, missing him by inches. He held on, exhausted and bleeding, as the river roared back to life beneath him. It took him another 5 hours to climb back to the main tunnels. When he emerged, filthy and barely able to stand, he found a crowd of dragons waiting. Queen Thessalia was among them. Her golden eyes were wide with something that looked like wonder. "The water flows again," she said. "Our scouts have confirmed it. The river is restored." Marcus collapsed against the tunnel wall. "Told you," he gasped. "Human thinking." The dragons stared at him. This tiny, broken-looking creature had accomplished what their mightiest warriors could not. He had crawled into darkness, faced an impossible problem, and solved it through nothing but persistence and cleverness. Vorthax moved to stand beside Marcus. The great dragon looked down at the human with something new in his eyes. "I have lived 4,000 years," Vorthax said slowly. "I have seen many things. I have never seen anything like this." Queen Thessalia approached. She lowered her magnificent head until her golden eyes were level with Marcus. "You have earned our attention, human. You have earned our curiosity. But you have not yet earned our full trust. That will require more than unblocking a river." Marcus forced himself to stand straight despite his exhaustion. "Name it. Whatever you need." "The Varthakeen have a weapon station on the eastern ridge. It controls the shields that keep us contained. If that station were to fail, we could expand our territory. We could hunt in the outer valleys again. We could grow strong once more." "You want me to destroy the station?" "No. Destruction is easy. Destruction brings war. I want you to give us access without the Varthakeen knowing. I want you to make their weapon protect us instead of contain us." Marcus considered this. It was a massive task. Infiltrating a Varthakeen military installation, reprogramming their technology. Doing it all without being detected. Impossible. He smiled. "When do I start?" Queen Thessalia made a sound that might have been laughter. "Rest first, human. Even the most valuable tools must be maintained. You will have food, water, and a place to sleep. Tomorrow, we plan." As Marcus was led away to rest, he passed Vorthax. The great dragon leaned close. "The other dragons are talking," Vorthax said quietly. "They say you are either the bravest creature who ever lived or the most foolish." "Probably both," Marcus admitted. "They are also saying something else. Something that has not been said in 4,000 years." "What's that?" Vorthax's eyes gleamed with firelight. "They are saying that perhaps some creatures are not meant to be eaten. Perhaps some creatures are meant to be followed." Marcus said nothing. He was too tired for words. But as he walked toward his rest, he allowed himself a small moment of hope. He had survived another day. He had proven his worth. And somewhere in these volcanic peaks, surrounded by dragons who had once wanted to eat him, Marcus Cole was beginning to see the shape of something extraordinary, a partnership that could change everything, a rebellion that could reshape the stars, and a future where a single, stubborn human might just become something that no one had ever imagined possible. But first, he needed to sleep. Even revolutions required rest. In the darkness of the dragon caves, for the first time since his crash, Marcus Cole slept without nightmares. He dreamed instead of fire and freedom, and the dreams felt like prophecy. 3 months passed in the Dragon Peaks. 3 months of planning. 3 months of preparation. 3 months of Marcus Cole transforming from a discarded prisoner into something the dragons had never seen before. He taught them about human history, about wars fought with cleverness instead of strength, about how small groups had defeated mighty empires through strategy and patience. The dragons listened with growing fascination. They had always believed that power was the only thing that mattered. Marcus showed them that intelligence could multiply power 1,000 times. In return, the dragons taught Marcus about their own history, about the centuries before the Varthakeen had arrived, when dragons ruled this entire world, about the great war that had cost them so many lives, about how they had retreated to the peaks not out of weakness, but out of a desire to avoid complete extinction. Queen Thessalia spent many hours with Marcus. She told him secrets that no outsider had ever heard, about the old magic that flowed through dragon blood, about the connection they shared with the volcanic mountains, about the prophecy that spoke of a day when dragons would rise again. "Our legends speak of one who would come from beyond the stars," Thessalia said one evening, "a creature unlike any we had known, small in body but vast in spirit, one who would remind us of what we had forgotten." "And what had you forgotten?" Marcus asked. "That strength without purpose is meaningless, that power without wisdom is destruction, that even the mightiest can benefit from alliance with the clever." Marcus thought about this often. He had not expected to find philosophy among the dragons. He had not expected to find friends. But Vorthax had become something close to a brother. The young dragons followed Marcus everywhere, eager to learn his strange human tricks. Even the oldest elders had begun to seek his counsel. He was no longer the useless human. He was Marcus the Firewalker, Marcus the River Breaker, Marcus the human who would not die. But the greatest test was still to come. The Eastern Ridge Weapon Station sat 3 miles from the Dragon Peaks. It was a fortress of metal and energy shields. 100 Varthakeen soldiers guarded it at all times. Its weapons could shoot dragons from the sky at 50 miles distance. It was the chain that kept the dragons imprisoned. Marcus spent 2 weeks studying the station from hidden positions in the rocks. He watched guard rotations. He counted weapons. He identified weaknesses in their patrol patterns. Vorthax flew overhead at night, memorizing the layout from above. Young dragons made maps based on his descriptions. The plan came together slowly. It was dangerous. It was insane. It was exactly the kind of thing that only a human would attempt. On the night of the operation, Marcus prepared his equipment. The dragons had crafted special items for him. Clothing that could resist their fire. Rope made from shed dragon scales, stronger than any metal. A blade forged in dragon flame that could cut through Varthakeen armor. "You know this might fail," Vorthax said. "You might die." "Humans have a saying," Marcus replied. "Fortune favors the bold." "What does that mean?" "It means that careful people live longer, but brave people live better." Vorthax rumbled with what might have been laughter. "Humans are strange creatures. The strangest in the galaxy." The operation began at midnight. A group of young dragons created a distraction on the western side of the station. They flew low and roared loudly, drawing guard attention away from the eastern approach. Alarms sounded, weapons powered up, soldiers rushed to defensive positions. Marcus used the chaos to approach from the opposite direction. He moved through shadows like a ghost. Years of survival training had made him silent, invisible, dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with strength. He reached the outer wall and found the maintenance hatch that Vorthax had spotted from above. The lock was electronic. Marcus had spent days studying Varthakeen technology with the help of Sira. She had escaped the offering that day, hidden in the cave as Marcus had told her. She had eventually found her way to the Dragon Peaks, drawn by rumors of the human who walked with dragons. Now she worked as a translator and technical advisor. Marcus connected the device Sira had helped him build. It sparked, hummed. The lock clicked open. Inside the station, corridors stretched in multiple directions. Marcus followed the path he had memorized. Left, then right, then down 3 levels. He avoided guards by listening for footsteps. He hid in shadows when patrols passed. Every step brought him closer to the central control room. He encountered 2 guards outside the main door. They did not see him coming. His dragon-forged blade was in his hand before they could raise their weapons. 2 quick strikes, 2 bodies falling. He dragged them into a storage closet and continued. The control room was large and filled with glowing screens. 3 technicians worked at consoles, monitoring the weapon systems. Marcus knew he had seconds before more guards arrived. He stepped through the door. The technicians turned, confused by the strange creature that had appeared among them. Before they could sound alarms, Marcus was already moving. He used strikes that disabled without killing, pressure points he had learned in military training. In moments, all 3 technicians were unconscious on the floor. Now came the hard part. Marcus sat at the main console. The language was Varthakeen, but Sira had taught him enough to understand the basics. He navigated through menu after menu, searching for the weapon targeting systems. Found them. The weapons were designed to track dragon heat signatures. They would automatically fire at any dragon that left the approved zone around the peaks. Marcus could not disable the weapons without triggering automatic backups, but he could do something else. He changed the approved zone. With careful keystrokes, he expanded the area where dragons could fly without triggering the weapons. He pushed the boundary out 20 miles, then 50, then 100. The weapons remained active, but they would no longer target dragons anywhere near the Varthakeen cities. Then he did something clever. He installed a hidden program that would gradually expand the approved zone over the next year. By the time the Varthakeen noticed, dragons would have freedom to fly across half the continent. But there was one more thing. Marcus found the communication systems. He recorded a message. His own voice, speaking Varthakeen words that Sira had helped him prepare. "This is a message for High Priest Zorvath. You sent me to die. You called me useless. You were wrong. The dragons have welcomed me. The dragons have empowered me. And now the dragons have a voice in your world. We do not want war. We want recognition. We want respect. We want the offerings to stop. If they do not stop within 1 month, we will come for them ourselves. This is not a threat. This is a promise. My name is Marcus Cole. I am the voice of dragons, and I am only beginning." He set the message to broadcast on all Varthakeen frequencies at sunrise. Alarms began to sound. Guards had discovered the unconscious technicians. Marcus was out of time. He ran. The corridors were filling with soldiers now. Energy weapons fired past him, burning holes in the walls. Marcus dodged and weaved, using every trick he knew. He burst through an emergency exit onto the station's outer platform. Searchlights found him immediately. 100 weapons pointed in his direction. "Surrender!" a Varthakeen commander shouted. "There is nowhere to run." Marcus looked up at the night sky. He smiled. "I'm not running," he said. "I'm flying." A shadow blocked out the stars. Vorthax descended like a meteor, fire pouring from his jaws. Soldiers scattered in terror. Weapons melted in their hands. The station's shields activated, but they were designed to stop dragon fire from outside, not from above. Vorthax grabbed Marcus in claws that were surprisingly gentle. With a massive beat of his wings, the dragon rose into the sky. More dragons appeared from the darkness, forming a protective formation around them. Behind them, the weapons station burned. Not destroyed, but damaged enough to cause chaos. It would take the Varthakeen weeks to repair it. By then, the dragons would have already spread across the continent. They flew through the night, a swarm of magnificent creatures carrying their unlikely champion home. When morning came, Marcus stood before the entire dragon assembly. Every dragon in the peaks had gathered in the great cavern, thousands of them from hatchlings to ancient elders. Queen Thessalia sat upon her stone throne, watching with those eternal golden eyes. "Marcus Cole," she spoke, and her voice echoed through the chamber. "3 months ago, you came to us as an offering, a meal, a worthless creature sent to die. Today, you have given us something we lost long ago. You have given us hope." The dragons rumbled in agreement. The sound was like thunder underground. "Our water flows because of you. Our prison weakens because of you. Our future brightens because of you. The Varthakeen now know that we have a voice. They will fear what they have created. They will remember what they tried to destroy. Thessalia rose from her throne. She approached Marcus until she towered above him, her white scales gleaming in the crystal light. In our oldest traditions, there is a title reserved for one who proves themselves beyond all doubt, one who earns the respect of fire and the loyalty of flame. This title has not been given in 5,000 years. The last to hold it united our people and led us to greatness. She lowered her magnificent head. Marcus Cole, human from the stars, walker of fire, breaker of chains, by the ancient right of merit, by the unanimous voice of this assembly, I name you Dragon Lord, the first in 5 millennia, the first who is not dragon, the first to prove that strength is not the only path to honor. A roar erupted from the gathered dragons. The mountain itself seemed to shake. Marcus felt the sound in his bones, in his soul. It was not just noise, it was acceptance, it was welcome, it was family. He had come to this world with nothing. He had been stripped of everything familiar. He had been marked for death by creatures who saw him as worthless. Now he stood crowned by dragons. He raised his hand, and the roaring slowly quieted. Thousands of ancient eyes watched him, waiting for their new lord to speak. I am honored, Marcus said, his voice strong despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. But I do not want to rule you. I want to walk beside you. I want to be your voice, not your master. We have begun something tonight, but it is only a beginning. The Varthakeen will not simply accept our message. They will fight. They will scheme. They will try to destroy us. He looked around at the assembled dragons. Let them try. They do not know what they have created. They thought they were disposing of garbage when they sent me here. They do not understand that humans are like seeds. Plant us anywhere and we grow. Challenge us with anything and we adapt. Try to kill us and we become harder to kill. He smiled. The Varthakeen have ruled this world for 1,000 years. They have kept you in these mountains, told themselves you were contained, told their people they had nothing to fear. That ends now, not with war, unless they force us to it, but with truth, with exposure, with the simple fact that they can no longer pretend you are mindless beasts. He pointed toward the distant cities. There are millions of Varthakeen who have never seen a dragon up close, who only know you from horror stories. We will show them the truth. We will fly over their cities without attacking. We will speak to those who will listen. We will find allies among those who have also been oppressed. And slowly, surely, we will change this world. Queen Thessalia regarded him with what might have been pride. You think like a dragon, Marcus Cole. Patient, strategic, playing the long game. I think like a human, Marcus corrected. We learned patience the hard way. We had to. We were never the strongest, never the fastest, never the most powerful, but we were always the most stubborn. Give a human enough time, and we will find a way. Always. The assembly began to disperse. Dragons returned to their caves, their tunnels, their lives. But something had changed. A new energy flowed through the peaks, a sense of possibility that had not existed before. Vorthax approached Marcus. The great dragon settled beside his friend. You could have left, Vorthax said. When we gave you freedom of the peaks, you could have tried to escape. Find a way off this planet. Return to your own kind. I could have, Marcus agreed. Why did you stay? Marcus was quiet for a moment. He thought about his crew, his ship, the life he had lost when he crashed on this world. He thought about everything he had been before the Varthakeen chains. Because I found something here, he finally said. Something I did not have out there. Purpose. Connection, family. My crew is dead. My ship is gone. But I am not alone. Not anymore. He looked at Vorthax with gratitude in his eyes. You could have eaten me that first day. You could have ended my story before it began. But you gave me a chance. You listened when no one else would. That is not nothing, Vorthax. That is everything. Vorthax made a sound that might have been embarrassment. I was mostly curious. Humans are strange. I wanted to see what would happen. And what happened? You burned an empire's illusion of control. You united my people behind a new purpose. You became our lord without ever asking for power. What happened, Marcus Cole, is that you proved every story about humans wrong. You are not weak. You are not useless. You are the most dangerous creature I have ever encountered. Because I can fight? Because you can inspire. Fight can be answered with fight. Inspiration cannot be contained. Days passed, then weeks, then months. Marcus received reports from Sira, who had volunteered to be his spy among the Varthakine cities. His message had caused chaos. High Priest Zorvath was furious. The council was divided. Some wanted to attack the peaks immediately. Others argued for negotiation. Still others whispered that perhaps the dragons had been mistreated for too long. Public opinion was shifting. Video of dragons flying peacefully over outer towns spread through Varthakine networks. Images of the White Dragon Queen speaking words of peace went viral. And everywhere, the story of the human who had risen from offering to Lord captured imaginations. The Varthakine military attempted 3 attacks on the peaks. All 3 failed. With the weapon station compromised, the dragons could see them coming from miles away. Marcus directed the defense, using strategies that combined human military knowledge with dragon power. The attacks were repelled without killing a single soldier. We do not want war, Marcus announced after each failed attack. We want recognition. Send diplomats, not armies. We will talk. Finally, reluctantly, the Varthakine Council agreed. High Priest Zorvath himself came to the peaks. He came with guards and weapons and energy shields. But he came. When he saw Marcus standing beside Queen Thessalia, his orange eyes burned with hatred. You! Zorvath spat. The useless creature, the garbage we discarded. Yes, Marcus said calmly. Me. The garbage that refused to stay discarded. The negotiations took weeks. Marcus served as translator and mediator. He pushed for fairness, not vengeance. He demanded recognition of dragon intelligence and rights. He demanded an end to the offerings. He demanded access to hunting grounds and water sources beyond the peaks. In return, he offered peace, cooperation, a future where dragons and Varthakine could share the planet instead of fighting over it. Not everyone was happy with the agreement. Zorvath lost much of his power. Old traditions were shattered, but the alternative was war, and the Varthakine had finally realized they could not win that war. Not against dragons led by a human who thought like no enemy they had ever faced. A year after his arrival, Marcus Cole stood on a cliff overlooking the Varthakine capital. Dragons flew openly through the sky. Below, crowds watched them with wonder instead of fear. Children pointed and laughed. Adults stared in amazement. This was just the beginning. Other species on other worlds were already hearing about what had happened here. About the useless human who had been thrown away and had risen to change everything. About the dragons who had found their voice. About the power of thinking differently. Vorthax landed beside him. What now, Lord Marcus? Marcus smiled at the title. He still was not entirely comfortable with it. Now we keep building, keep growing, keep proving that the impossible is just another word for not yet. This planet is only the beginning. The Varthakine have trading partners across 7-star systems. Those partners will hear our story. And somewhere out there, someone else is about to be thrown away like I was. Someone else is about to be called useless. He looked at the sky. Somewhere beyond those clouds was a galaxy full of species who had never met a human, never understood what humans could do. And when that happens, Marcus continued, when someone else is discarded and abandoned and left to die, I hope they remember what we did here. I hope they remember that strength is not the only measure of worth, that cleverness and courage and sheer stubborn refusal to quit can overcome any obstacle. Vorthax considered this. You truly believe that one person can change everything? Marcus thought about his journey. Crash-landed, captured, chained, marched to his death. He had been nobody, nothing, a meal waiting to be eaten. Now he was Dragon Lord of an entire civilization. I believe, Marcus said slowly, that every great change begins with one person who refuses to accept that things cannot be different. The universe wants us to give up, to accept our place, to surrender to the way things have always been. But humans are bad at surrendering. It is not in our nature. He turned to his dragon friend. So yes, one person can change everything, if that person is stubborn enough, clever enough, brave enough, and if that person is very, very lucky in the allies they find along the way. Vorthax spread his great wings. Firelight reflected off his scales. Then let us go find more allies, Lord Marcus. Let us show the galaxy what happens when dragons and humans work together. Marcus climbed onto Vorthax's back. He had learned to ride over the past year. It still thrilled him every time. To the stars! Then, to the stars, and whatever lies beyond. They rose into the sky together. Human and dragon, lord and friend, the impossible made real. Behind them, a world was changing. Ahead of them, a galaxy was waiting. And somewhere in the void between stars, other beings were about to learn what humans had always known, what dragons had just remembered, what the Varthakeen would never forget. Never underestimate the creature you throw away. It might just come back to rule you.